We want to welcome everybody to Iowa Postgame here with Coach Gary Close on a day in which the Iowa basketball season is now officially over with a 83-75 defeat at the hands of the Auburn Tigers. I am going to throw we're going to take some calls, but of course I want to spend the better part of at least the first 15 to 20 minutes here talking with Coach Close and getting somewhat of an explanation if we can achieve one as to some of the struggles that popped up today that were kind of indicative of their losses all season, Gary, and their losses in recent tournament play in general, even stretching into other years, other seasons. So let's just start with this game and look at this on a micro level. Iowa struggled to make shots. There's just they struggled to make threes. We talked about it yesterday. We've talked about it for all season. If this team doesn't make threes, they don't win. They are not good enough to not make threes. And I'm saying they're not good enough defensively, right? They're just not. You're not making threes. You're not winning. And so they are the epitome of live and die off the three-point shot. And my simple explanation, Gary, is they don't have enough three-point shooters. And all season long, I thought, okay, well, at some point, Peyton Sanford's going to start making shots. Chris Murray's going to hit a higher clip more consistently. Tony's shown he can't. They're not consistent enough. They don't have enough shooters to be reliant on the three-point jump shot. And that's my explanation, Gary. Obviously, a lot of it comes back to defense because they just don't defend well, and they didn't defend well at all in the second half. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think you're pretty accurate with that. I thought the first half really hurt them. They just, like you said, they couldn't make any shots, and so they fell behind, and Chris got off to a tough start, and gave Auburn confidence, and despite making a valiant effort in the second half, they were so far down that it was too far to come back, and so they fall short. So I don't think they're a great shooting team. I think they're maybe more streaky than anything. I think that's been the case all year. They really don't have any real pure, terrific three-point shooter. I think Peyton's got a chance to be. He's not there yet. And the rest of them are kind of in that same boat. I think a big part, Patrick never got back to the type of player that he can be. And I think that really hurt because that's 10, 12, 14 points a game maybe. Another outside threat that never materialized after his break. And then, like you said, defensively, you give up 83 points. You're not going to win very many games. Give it up 83. And I think what surprised me, I don't know if surprise is the right word, but you're playing a team like Auburn, who's not a great three-point shooting team. Now, they made some when they got comfortable, a lot in transition, but in the first half, they didn't. Why you extend the court when they're quicker at every position and they're going to drive it? And I don't get it. And so they got them comfortable. They constantly beat them off the dribble and either scored or dropped it off or kicked it out. And so defensively, they fell way short. You give up 83, you're not going to win probably. And appreciated the effort. It was a terrific effort down the stretch. And, it wasn't a lack of effort. Sometimes when you really get disappointed is when the effort's not there. It was a lack of execution. I think Auburn was a lot quicker at every position. I think the same thing held true with Illinois against Arkansas. The SEC is a quick athletic league, and the Big Ten is not. And I think both teams got exposed in terms of quickness and athleticism.
All right, now I'm going to take it macro a little bit. And Gary, that of the two of us, you're the logical, you're the coach for a reason. But I may say things from an emotional standpoint. A year ago, Iowa loses as a 5 seed. They lose to a 12 seed Richmond, a team that got blown out by Providence in the next round. And I was very defensive of Fran McCaffrey. I said, look, they won the Big Ten tournament this year. He had struggled to win in that tournament up until last season. And I said, let's just wait. All right, he got that monkey off his back. Let's wait till this next season. Obviously, they lost a lot with Keegan Murray leaving, with Joe Toussaint leaving, Jordan Bohannon, etc. They're an 8 seed. It's hard to play on the road in Birmingham. We can make all those excuses if you want, but I don't know how to defend Fran anymore. I don't. I've been very patient with their lack of defense and his lack of desire, lack of willingness to commit himself to coaching the defensive end and spending more time coaching on that end is unacceptable in my opinion. And if he's not going to go hire a coach that knows how to coach defense, like they've had opportunities, we've talked about it. I like Matt Gatens, I like Courtney Eldridge, but if he's not willing to make a change with his staff, then he has to make a change with philosophy. It's going to be one of the two things, maybe both. And there's going to be a lot of people, I've heard from him, a lot of people who are calling for Fran to be fired. I will remind you of what happened in 1999, Gary. And it was involving your staff and a guy named Dr. Tom Davis, who was wins, losses wise and tourney trip wise, very similar to what Fran has done here at Iowa. And Fran has been to the tournament, 4 straight seasons? So I am hesitant to say fire Fran. Like, I don't think I don't think I'm to that point. I don't judge anybody for having that opinion because I get it. I mean, it's frustrating. We have been more than patient. He's been here 13 years. They haven't made the Sweet 16 since 1999. I understand that's not all Fran, but about half of it is. In fact, exactly half of it is. I'm sick of it, Gary. I'm sick of it, and I know you're not going to say it, but I will. I'm and I don't know what else to say regarding Fran McCaffery. I waited and I waited and I waited this season, all right? Even after they lost to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, I waited and I said, look, everybody told me a year ago that nothing mattered but the NCAA tournament, so let's wait to see if he can figure it out. And I felt like I watched the exact game I watched a year ago to Richmond. Exact game. They can't make shots. They don't defend well enough to overcome. I just say the same thing over and over again in every loss. We said the same thing against Nebraska. We said the same thing for the Ohio State game last week. When you keep losing the same way over and over again, doesn't it mean you have a coaching issue? I mean, you don't have to answer that, Gary. But to me, that's the answer. You are not. And for people who say, I saw somebody during halftime on social media who made the comment, well, Fran can't shoot for his guys. That's like saying, well, Brian Ferentz can't execute, can't block for his guys. I'm pretty sure at this level or any level of sports and coaching, Gary, your players are a reflection on you as a coach. And if your guys aren't executing, it's either A, because you're not teaching well enough, or B, you're not recruiting good enough players. Right? I mean, doesn't it come down to either the X's and O's or the Jimmies and Joes? Am I wrong about that?
Jimmies and Joes?
Yeah. It comes down to one of those two categories. And so for the people, well, Fran just doesn't have shooters. Well, why didn't he get better shooters? Why do we have guards in the game that can't shoot? They don't have anybody that can shoot from behind the arc consistently in their backcourt right now, Gary. That's a concern. At one point, Connor was making threes, but Ulis can't make threes. Perkins isn't confident enough to make threes. Dix ain't playing. Bowen's hardly playing. You can't win. I'm convinced now. I will say it. I am convinced now that this Iowa team will never make the Sweet 16 until they get better guard play. And
well, I think you could say that for any team. I don't think there's any doubt. You got to have real good guard play. They've been up and down. And, as I mentioned, they don't have a real pure, great 3-point shooter like Jordan was, or some other players that they've had before. I think some people could build a case. I'm not going to say overachieve, but from what they lost and what they had coming back, and then you throw in the loss, really basically the loss of Patrick too. He was never the same after his time off. I'm surprised. In some ways, I think they overachieved to some extent. Now, when you see them play as well as they played against Indiana, then on the road, then you wonder, well, come on, you got to be doing that all the time. But I think this was a limited team. Especially with Patrick not being able to step up, and it cost him. It cost him down the road. They've always been an offensive oriented team, and their offense wasn't as good as it normally has been.
Let me debate you on one part of that, and I understand you're breaking down what just happened in this season's struggles, But you bring up, well, they didn't have a guard that can shoot threes like Jordan Bohannon. You'd probably throw Peter Jock into that conversation, a guy who could really knock down threes at a high rate. But Gary, they have had the same result. That's the problem. They've had the same result regardless of having guys like Jordan Bohannon and guys like Peter Jock. They don't have guys who can defend. Right now, they don't have guys who are making threes in the backcourt or guys who can defend very well from in the backcourt. Really don't have guys anywhere on the court that defend at a real high level. At least not that I see. You tell me. You are obviously a terrific defensive coach. Is there anybody on Iowa's roster that stands out from an individual defensive standpoint?
No.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. If Aaron Ulis is going to play and not make threes, he better be defending well. If Tony Perkins is going to play, Jordan Bohannon, we all know Jordan Bohannon didn't defend very well, but he made threes. It still wasn't good enough to get him over the hump in the tournament, but he made threes. Now they don't really have either. And Perkins has shown flashes, but again, the inconsistency. I think I know I'm kind of quick firing all this. I haven't had much time to really think about what just happened, but my first reaction, Gary, is Fran's got to do work in the portal. He's just got to do work in the portal. And I don't know if the answer is DeSante Bowen. Heck, I didn't like the answer DeSante Bowen gave to Tom Kakert pre-game. Tom Kakert asked him, a lot of guys, when you're not playing, they look to enter the portal. And he said to DeSante, he said, you're not thinking about doing that? And DeSante said, well, right now I'm focused on Iowa. Right now you're focused on Iowa. That's not a real solid statement either. That kind of makes me think, I'm certainly speculating that who knows? They could lose DeSante Bowen, who a year ago, boy, 4-star kid. We're excited about him being a difference maker at guard. He hardly played a little bit today. Anyways, I know I'm ranting right now, but I think they got to go to the portal, Gary. I think there's a chance they lose a couple guys. They're already going to lose Connor McCaffrey and Philip Bracha. And they need toughness inside. They need guards. They need players who can shoot. I think they've got 2 or 3 significant needs that probably are going to have to be filled in the portal, because I don't know if Owen Freeman, Brock Harding, Price Sanford are just going to be ready as true freshmen to come in next year and fill those gaps.
Yeah, I don't know either. I haven't seen those guys play enough to give you an educated guess, but that's the nature of college basketball now. I don't think there's any doubt they'll have to look and see what happens. So time will tell. It's frustrating. I don't think there's any doubt, especially as well as they played against Indiana. I think the Nebraska game really set them back, and they never really recovered from that. And you get in a rut like that, it's hard to get out. It's hard to win in the NCAA, and I'm not making excuses, but believe me, it is hard. Ask some of those teams today that are packing their bags. Like Arizona, who I had Arizona winning the whole thing in my bracket, and they're heading home, and I'm sure their fans are not happy. And there's some other examples of that. Princeton beats Arizona, and Furman wins a game that there's no way they should win. So it's the nature of the NCAA tournament. They're not easy to win. And Maryland's won in the Big Ten. Illinois is out. So I know it's frustrating when it's back to back, but trust me, it's not easy to do.
And remember, it's not just back. I know if one and done, it's back to back, Gary. But this is how many tournament appearances under Fran McCaffrey. So I know you're not letting the coaching staff off the hook, but again, I would say the same thing about playing offense in the Big Ten and football. It's hard to play offense against great defenses. There's a lot of great defenses in the Big Ten, but I'm not. It's Brian Ferentz's job to figure it out. It's Brian Ferentz's job to figure it out. So it's Fran McCaffrey's job to figure out how to win in this tournament. And yeah, 1 or 2 is one thing, but a pattern of a number of years is another. So maybe I'm being too harsh. Let's go ahead and go to our first caller on our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Joe is on the line. Joe, welcome to the show. Joe, you're
What's
muted.
up, Joe?
Joe's gone. We'll try to get Joe back. DC Hawkeye, appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much, DC Hawkeye. I've been a loyal listener, I know, throughout the year, and I think last year as well. He says, Coach Close said it best a few weeks ago, if you don't have world-class talent, then you better build off of a good defense. Auburn won with defense. Thank you, Corey and Coach Close, for a great basketball season coverage. Thank you, DC Hawk. I appreciate you supporting the show. And I really was not that impressed with Auburn offensively. I thought they were good defensively. I will say this, Gary. maybe you have a better explanation while we're waiting for Joe to jump back on. Fran McCaffrey continued to go with that full court press, and it didn't work once. I don't care. They had the inbounds pass. It was just a dumb pass by Auburn, the full court heave that ended up going out of bounds. Just a dumb pass. They carved up that full court press like it was, they were carving up a slice of pumpernickel bread.
Rye bread.
That was completely ineffective, Gary. Why stick with it when Auburn is
I don't
continuing?
know if it was completely ineffective. They took a couple quick shots against it and missed and led to some transition baskets. It wasn't great, but I don't think it was a total disaster. That's not where they lost the game. I'll put it that way.
They took, well, first of all, here I'm going to debate you a minute here, Gary. All right, so forgive me.
Sure.
They took quick shots off and missed open shots. So it sped them up, but they were missing open shots. And that's on
that's part of pressure defense. That's when you're down 17, your options are a little bit limited. You gotta try to increase the number of possessions, and it did get them back in the game. They got to the point where it was getting a little bit dicey for Auburn, and unfortunately, a couple layups and a couple free throws that didn't go down, or could have really been interesting, but it didn't happen.
You think the press got them back in the game?
I think the tempo got them back in the game a little bit, and I think Auburn. I think the press and Auburn took a lot of bad shots, a lot of quick, bad shots that if they go in, then you're going to get blown out. But you're at a point now where you're down as much as you are. You got to make something happen. Hope they miss them, and then you can go down and score quick, and you're scoring. Not a whole lot of clock being used, and that's exactly what happened. And Auburn took some really. I agree with you. I was not impressed with Auburn. If the kid from Houston's back, I don't think they advance. I'll be surprised if they do.
I agree.
And I'm not sure Iowa would have beat him either. But I thought Auburn took advantage of an Iowa team that didn't play real well. And, to their credit, they did enough things to get the job done. But I wasn't overly impressed with them either.
I will agree with you on one thing there. That's foolish on Auburn's part to fall into the trap of taking quick shots out of the press, because I'm giving Bruce Pearl a compliment when I say they carved up it was obviously well scouted from my vantage point. Like Bruce Pearl taught those guys in the last few days how to break that Iowa press, which has been effective at times this season. But if you're Auburn, and I think they eventually slowed it down. I think Bruce in that was the under 8 timeout eventually kind of got them together and said, hey, we got to slow things down. Even if you break the press, we're not quick shooting the ball. But up until that point, you're right. Iowa kind of, even though the press in itself wasn't real effective, it did speed them up, force them to take shots, and albeit open shots, they were missing them, and it got Iowa some opportunities. But again, you're in that situation in the first place because you can't make threes, and your defense wasn't good enough to keep you in it at the time. So anyways, let's get back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
Hey, Corey. It's Pat. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Pat?
Doing great. Not a bad season. One thing I like is that Fran seems to always keep the kids together, and on all of Fran's team, the kids seem to like playing with each other, and they seem to like to play for Fran. So that's a positive for those kids, and winning 11 games in the Big Ten's a positive, and I think it's the fourth or fifth straight NCAA tournament, which only 10 teams have that kind of streak going. So a lot of positives there, and that's great to see. I don't know who did the game on TV. I listened. I'm driving and listened on Westwood One, and it was Stephen Bardo was the color guy, and I can't remember the play-by-play guy. But when Auburn was making their little barrage of threes there, and so was it Bardo on the TV or was he just on the radio?
No, he was just on the radio. It was
okay. So when Auburn was making their little run, Bardo actually said, as has happened many times during the Big Ten season, because of course Bardo works for the Big Ten Network, as has happened many times during the Big Ten season, Iowa can't seem to locate shooters in transition. And I just I just busted laughing, and it was
well. Let's be honest, Pat.
frustrating to see.
Let's call a spade a spade. Auburn is a bad 3-point shooting team, and you brought it up, Gary. That we talked about it last night with Nicholas Bear. It was weakness against weakness. Iowa doesn't defend threes very well. Auburn doesn't shoot threes very well. They're plus, both those teams are plus 300 in those respective categories. And I remember saying it's probably going to be whoever is less bad. And if you look at the stats, Auburn was less bad for the game. Auburn, trying to find the total number of threes made. They made 8 threes, 8 of 22, 36%. That's good enough. That's good enough in a game like this, especially when Iowa shoots 26%, and most of those came, when you're frantically trying to come back at the end.
Yeah, it was definitely good enough this afternoon. Lastly, because you've probably got people that me and want to vent, so I want to let them do that. But the only thing I would say in closing, that being we're debating Gary tonight, is, Gary, I've heard you say numerous times, well, Iowa's not going to look as good defensively or be as good defensively because they play an upstyle type of game and there's more possession, so it's going to look worse through the metrics. And I just want to say that the metrics really capture speed of play. The defensive efficiency stat has really nothing to do with amount of points scored or amount of possessions. It has to do with how many points do you give up per possession, which really takes in all facets of defense. So in other words, it takes in rebounding, because if you give up a bunch of offensive rebounds in one offensive set, well, then a team has a greater likelihood of scoring on that possession. And again, it's points allowed per possession. If you foul too much, you're giving up more points per possession, so on and so forth. So I would just say, Gary, I don't agree with Iowa is going to have poor performance or poor statistics due to the type of game that they play. It's just measured by possession. So if there were only 5 possessions a game, it would still measure how many points did you score per those 5 possessions. And it doesn't factor in the total number of points scored.
I get
you're right about that. But the other situation is if you're an up-tempo team and you're shooting the ball quickly and you're not making them, your floor balance is much worse. And so you're going to give up higher percentage shots on the other end. If you're going to walk the ball up the court and move the ball around and make the defense play for 30 or 35 seconds and then shoot it, they're not going to get as many breakout types of plays that are going to be higher percentage shots. And so that's definitely part of it. The points per possession is a good point. I've never said that Iowa is a good defensive team. But I think their style of play contributes to part of that, because they're going to shoot the ball quick and they're going to shoot the ball in an open court, and those are going to be long rebounds. And so their rotations back are not as strong. And so they give up more easier opportunities. And if you give up more easier opportunities, teams have a tendency to shoot a higher percentage, and then their points per possession are going to go up.
Fair enough. Well, hopefully they can figure out floor balance in the future and maybe do something to correct that. Guys, I appreciate the show. Have a good off season, and let's go Hawkeye baseball. And Corey, will hope for the best for the fall for the football team.
All right, thanks for the call.
Thank you, sir. And the women are still playing tomorrow. I know some people don't care about women's basketball. I do. So I'll enjoy watching the Iowa women. I think they got a good chance of advancing past this weekend and maybe past next weekend. In your defense, Gary, I know, I think some of what Pat said holds water, but you've never claimed Iowa. Make that clear. You have never claimed that Iowa's a good defensive team. All right. And
no, the numbers dictated. I mean, you have your head in your sand. Yeah.
You have talked about how it's likely that what you focus on the most is what you're going to be best at. And it is hard to focus on multiple things. There are a few teams that are great on both categories. I will say this. You look at a team like Houston, and I know Pat's really into Ken Palm ratings, and I think those Ken Palm ratings do serve a purpose. But Houston is top 10 in both categories, in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. They don't score a ton of points, so I'm sure they're not, top 10 in the country in scoring. I guarantee they're not. But they are efficient. And so that's the balance we're trying to strike, and the balance that's completely non-existent, Gary. Iowa's 160-something in the country in defensive efficiency.
Right. But being efficient and then being a high-tempo team is different. Some of our Wisconsin teams will surprise a lot of people. Were in the top 5 in terms of offensive efficiency, and yet our number of possessions was down because we controlled the tempo to some extent. And a lot of it depends upon the ability of your players. If you got players that can break defenses down quicker and can get good shots at a quicker rate, then your number of possessions are going to go up. If they're not, then it's going to take you longer to break a defense down if you're looking for a good shot. And in doing that, the number of possessions are going to go down. So, and so that, that's a big part of it.
I would still argue, and I don't think you're probably going to argue this against my argument. The proof, you bring up Wisconsin. Your Wisconsin teams, Bo Ryan's Wisconsin teams were kind of the polar opposite of what Iowa is. Although I don't think you guys were ever this bad offensively as Iowa is defensively. But you made a couple Final Fours. You had a lot of tournament success. Maybe there's, like, at some point, if you're Fran McCaffrey, you have to step back and eat a huge slice of humble pie. Tuesday was Pie Day, by the way, 314. But at some point, you gotta have a piece of pie and humble pie and say, hey, maybe this philosophy, as much as it's inbred in me, and it is into Fran McCaffrey, we got to play better defense. Like, it just tournament play to win in the NCAA tournament. We have to change our philosophy. We'd rather be more efficient defensively. And I'm not saying Iowa's going to turn into a Wisconsin, but again, there has to be some adjustments, Gary. And I have not seen any significant adjustments since the Woody Gasell era. I haven't. Now, I'm not a coach. Maybe you can tell me otherwise. I know you haven't watched every single Iowa game since 2015, but I have seen basically the same philosophy defensively. We're going to switch defenses all the time. We're going to try to confuse a team with our press. We're going to recruit a bunch of shooters, which right now they don't have hardly any shooters. They got some more coming in next year. They don't really recruit or at least land real high caliber defensive players in general. And I think a lot of that is who you're focusing your assets, your attentions on. Am I wrong on that? Have you seen adjustments in Iowa's philosophy defensively since the start of their struggles and the start of their significant struggles, whatever it was in 2016 or 17?
No, I wouldn't say so. No.
Okay. So explain that. Can you explain that? Is it just a mentality of Fran saying, well, we're good enough. We're making the tournament every year. That's good enough. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing and hope at some point we strike gold? Or is it just a refusal to accept the fact that, hey, we got to play different to win in this tournament?
Well, I don't know. I'm not there every day, so I can't tell you what they emphasize and what they don't. You can only go by what you see on the court. And I think he'd be the first one to tell you that defensively they're not good enough. And offensively, they were real inconsistent in terms of knocking shots down. And when they were on, they were really good. When they weren't, they weren't. And, defensively, they were just okay. So, unless you're there every day watching what they're doing and teaching and emphasizing, it's hard to second guess other than what you see on the court. And I think they'd be the first to tell you that their defense wasn't good enough either.
And Gary, I think you know that I'm mostly just venting towards you. I don't expect an explanation from a guy that's not at practice. I get it. So let's go to our next caller. By the way, our phone line is open for our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. It's 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601. We're recapping Iowa's first-round defeat in the NCAA tournament, 83-75 to the Auburn Tigers. And do want to thank Iowa Smokehouse because they have been sponsoring this show throughout the latter half of the season, and we appreciate their support, and we ask that you please extend your support toward Iowa Smokehouse and Company. They're down in Albia, local company. And again, as you support our sponsors, you're supporting the show. And I would say there's a better chance of being able to have post-game coverage again next year. I think that makes sense to most people. They've got great snacks, folks. Their meat sticks, their beef jerky. They've got salsas, barbecue sauces, ketchups, a lot of great bacon products. Who doesn't like bacon? Use that code Hawkeye at iowasmokehouse.com for 15% off. Again, that's the code Hawkeye at iowasmokehouse.com for 15% off your order, and $50 orders will get free shipping during March until the end of March Madness. So keep using that code and keep putting in those orders, and you'll get awesome stuff from our sponsor, Iowa Smokehouse. All right, let's go to the Iowa.
Corey, what do you think Virginia fans are saying right now?
During March until the end.
Well, they're probably ticked. They've lost to two really low seeds in the past, whatever it is, 5 years, but they do have a national championship in there, Gary. So I don't want to hear any of that nonsense from a team that won a national title a couple of years ago. But yeah, you're right. I mean, any given day you can lose, right?
People don't care much about what you've done in the past. Well, they have short memories. But I agree with you. They have accomplished something. But I guarantee you they're talking about how bad they are offensively, and we got to get better offense, and we got to open it up and things like that. And it's the exact opposite of Iowa, and both of them are out. So there's a balance there.
But it is fair, Gary, to say Iowa, we have a pattern. They've never broken through. Virginia has recently. So when you have a pattern of the same thing happening over and over again, that's, I think, reason for real frustration. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call line. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
This is Sean, guys. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Is the purpose of putting on a press twofold? One, you hope to get a steal, and if you don't get a steal, to cut down the amount of time left on the shot clock when they do get down on the other end?
That's certainly two of the reasons. As we talked about earlier, sometimes it gets teams out of sync offensively. They take quick shots or don't run their offense or don't get the ball to the people they like to get it to. You can wear teams out. You can hope for a flurry where all of a sudden you get 2 or 3 turnovers in a row where teams get sloppy and you can cut into a lead quickly. When you're down big, it's one of the things you can go to in hopes of increasing the number of possessions and trying to cut into that lead.
Is it fair to say, Gary, that, and I could be totally off on this, but perhaps the plan from Fran McCaffrey and staff was let's show a press to speed them up. So perhaps Auburn wasn't breaking the press as easily as it appeared. It was almost like Iowa was allowing them to break the press because they knew that would speed them up. They didn't want to slow the game down when you're trying to come back from 17 down.
No, but that pressure at times can slow people down.
Sure.
You keep the ball in front, and then by the time they get it across the 10-second line, now the shot clock's a factor. So you can use pressure defense to speed the tempo up as well as to slow it down. And a lot of it depends upon how the opponent's going to attack it. In Auburn's case, they tried to attack it hard and tried to get quick shots, which kind of played into Iowa's favor. Some other teams are a little more methodical attacking it, and now they get it across. We've seen Iowa get some 10-second counts on teams that are a little more methodical, and now you do get it across, and you got 20 seconds or less on the shot clock. So now your offense has got to be sped up a little bit.
It seems like to me this year, maybe this is just me, but it seems like there's a lot of over dribbling in college basketball, that the ball could move faster than the human body could. If you didn't have a shot right away, move it on. Any thoughts?
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that. I think there's a lot of dribble handoffs and things like that are increasing the rate of dribbles, and so I would say that's probably a good observation.
Here's my quick observation or my quick prediction, Gary, and this is to you as well, John, as it relates, because you say over dribbling. I think of Tony Perkins at times. I think of Aaron Eulis at times. I think that's a problem they both have. Although I think Aaron Eulis has cleaned up his struggles, maybe with over dribbling that caused turnovers early in the season. He's not turning the ball over right now, but he's not giving you anything. So here's my prediction, John. One of those guards is going to transfer. I don't think it's probably Tony. Would not be surprised if it was Aaron Eulis. Would not be surprised if it was DeSante Bowen. And I'm not saying Fran's going to push him out, but my prediction is at least one of those guys transfers. And my guess is I've been saying for a long time, I think Brock Harding's going to redshirt. He may not. Brock Harding may play next year because I think they need guard play. Fran may swing in the portal at a guard, but I think guards are going to be hard to come by. Really, guards that can come in and be plug-and-play guards at this level are going to be hard to come by. I would not be surprised to see Harding play next year, and I think one of the guards I doubt it's Dix. He's an Iowa kid. He's got obviously a future, especially as a 3-point shooter here. I think one of the guards leaves, John.
Well, I don't think Aaron Eulis leaves because of his playing time, but it wouldn't surprise me if DeSante Bowen left.
Well, Aaron Eulis only played. Let's remember, John. Aaron Eulis played 15 minutes and 55 seconds today, and he played 17 minutes in a loss to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. So he can be starting. They ain't playing that many minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not saying Fran's going to push certain people out, but Fran's also not going to. I'm sure Fran. I'm confident, especially with his history of guard play at the lower levels at Siena and UNC Greensboro. I'm sure he realizes that guard play is a problem right now. So I don't see him just retaining guys to retain guys, if you know what I mean, especially with the portal.
Let me ask your opinion on this. This is something I've wondered about. It seemed like when Patrick McCaffrey came back, Bowen and Dix went to the bench. Now, is Patrick McCaffrey by himself more value to the team than what Bowen and Dix are together?
Well, I think they hoped he was going to be because he had shown that at times in the past. He did not. He never really got it going again after he was out for a while. And as we said before, I think that was a big factor because he was a starter and a double-figure scorer, and he wasn't even close to that, and it hurt him.
Okay. Well, Coach, I like to learn, and I appreciate you helping me to learn. And Corey, thank you for having the podcast and putting up with us.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for the call.
All right. I appreciate John calling. He's been a good caller. Always has good questions throughout the season, so appreciate him being a part of the show as well.
Keeps us on our toes.
That's right. We got a number of callers that do that. So I will say there was one point, and I didn't take any notes, Gary, during this game. I'm not interested in doing that during a tournament game, but there was at one point, I believe Iowa was down 4 with 4 or 5 minutes to go, and Sanford has a wide open 3 in transition, and he misses it. And I know that's just one shot, but that's just like he makes that shot. Who knows? I
thought that was a big play, and there was another play where it was a little earlier than that. I think they were down 6, and they had a long pass to Murray that was a little far, and he didn't quite catch it right, and kind of rushed a shot and missed, and they came down and hit 2 threes, bang, bang. And so it could have gone to 4 and ended up going to 12. And, a game like that just kills you.
Gary, how many missed layups, shots around the rim, not able to finish? I see people complaining about officiating. I didn't think it was that bad. There were a couple of calls I didn't think it was that bad, and I'm usually the one who's jumping on them, and you're the one telling me I'm crazy.
I'm surprised.
I don't think it was that bad. I think a lot of times Iowa fans have the tendency to complain about officiating when officials allow excessive contact because Iowa's typically not tough enough to deal with excessive contact. I think that's why Iowa fans complain about it. They get pushed around, they get bullied around, and it ends up looking like, oh, the refs are being unfair to Iowa. Well, maybe our guys just aren't tough enough. Like I saw a number of times in this game, Auburn players just displacing, I won't say specifically who, but Iowa players, and I don't think it was a foul. I think it's just being tougher, being more physical.
Yeah.
Body up.
Well,
Gary.
Iowa's not a physical team, not a big team. And Auburn really isn't either, but they're quicker and maybe a little more physical.
And even when they're
tall,
even when they're tall, Gary, they're not a physical, tough ground pound team.
Agree with that.
All right, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Doug is on our line. Doug, how you doing, sir?
Well, Iowa losing a basketball game is not in my top 100 tragedies of my life. So I'm okay.
If it is, then we all have problems.
Yes. I'm okay. So many things I want to maybe discuss or talk about. One of the things I was going to say, again, I understand people being negative. There's a reason to be in the fan base. Sometimes, let's not get on each other. It just is what it is. But first thing I would say is about Connor. Well, to all you Connor haters, you don't have to freaking deal with him anymore. He's done. So, I mean,
Connor McCaffrey, I'll just say this about Connor, Doug. Connor is what he is.
Yep.
And he's a Big Ten caliber player.
Yes,
he was. A very good offensive player. He's a very smart player. He's going to be I would guess he'll be a very good coach. Yeah. I think Spencer Petras will be a very good coach.
Yes.
I do. I think he'll be a very good coach.
They're nice kids. It's just.
They're both those guys are very football and basketball savvy. Mm-hmm. But, Connor, he lost. He completely, to me, my vantage point, it appeared to me that Connor McCaffrey completely lost his confidence from behind the arc as the season wore on. And he never got it back. He just never got it back, Gary.
Yeah, I would agree. He was 1 point and 1 rebound away from getting a double-double.
He did a lot of things great. He was one of my favorite Hawkeyes, and I'm very sad to see him leave. And I hope fans will learn to appreciate what he did here, and because he loved the university and being a part of this program. So
he's a great representation of Iowa. He's a great representation of the team.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to kind of talk to you about, because I kind of agree with people now. I wasn't there before the NCAA tournament, but somebody did turn the heater on for Fran. I'm not saying all the way or anything like that, but when what didn't happen from 1991 to 2001? We never lost a first-round game. So we had 10 straight.
Hold on a second. What are you talking about when somebody turned the heater on? What does that mean?
I think that, I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat. I just would say someone turned the knob, and now there's heat. I'm not saying he's on the hot seat. You understand? I'm not going.
Yeah. Let me just say he is not on the hot seat. I just want to establish that he is 100% not on the hot seat.
All right.
He's not. I mean, Gary, is Fran McCaffrey on the hot seat? He's not.
I wouldn't know. I doubt it, but I wouldn't know.
Well, I would hope Gary Barta would be first before anyone else.
I'll say this: if Gary Barta is willing to allow Brian Ferentz to continue as the offensive coordinator at Iowa, how in the world would you defend firing Fran McCaffrey?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that's just so no. He's not on the hot seat, and I'm not saying I don't think he should be. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's not, and I'm saying there's 0% chance that he gets fired this offseason. That's all I'm saying.
No. I was never saying that.
I'm just established because I see people in the chat, and I saw Dom's question here. Corey, do you still think Fran's seat shouldn't be warm? That's a different question. Gary, you can answer the question. I'm sure you may not feel comfortable answering the question. If you don't want to, that's fine. Do you think Fran his seat should be warm?
No.
Coach, the way I look at it is they've already put a standard of where you guys were. I don't think, he should be held to a lesser standard than Coach Davis. That's just my opinion.
Well, are we splitting hairs though, Doug? When we're talking about because Fran hadn't lost a first round game prior to last season, hadn't lost a first round game since 2013 against Tennessee in the first four. He had beaten Davidson, had beaten Temple, had beaten Cincinnati. So the one and done thing is a recency thing.
Yep.
Right?
Yes. But I don't want to see it next year, but I don't know how he prevents that from happening.
I think there's got to be – here's what I'll agree with you on, Doug, and I'm sorry if I'm dominating the conversation, Gary.
No. Again, I don't want to say he's fired like some of these people. Like he's not on my hot seat.
What I'm going to say is I do think and Fran will never admit this, assuming Fran returns next season, and I'm saying that not because I think he's going to get fired. I think there's a 0% chance that happens. But if Notre Dame were to be interested in Fran and he decides he wants to go, maybe. You never know, right? But I would say this. If he returns next year, I do think the dial is turned up on pressure, not fear of losing your job.
Yeah.
But I almost wonder if some of these players, Doug, year after year, they listen a little bit too much to the outside noise. I always thought Jordan Bohannon maybe listened to the outside noise a little bit too much with social media. That's his prerogative. He has every right to do it. But you wonder, they're reading these things. They're reading the comments from people. It has to affect you. And even though most of these players weren't around for 95% of this Sweet 16 drought, I wonder if they don't feel the pressure once I could be wrong on that. Gary, do you think there's any possibility that the players each year feel the pressure of the fan base of not having tournament success?
Maybe a little, but there's just pressure playing the NCAA tournament. It's one and done. I mean, it's different. I'm telling you, it's different. You know, if you don't play well, your season's over. And we've already seen it today, even already with some teams that are going home that probably shouldn't be. But it's a different bear.
And the other thing I say with our athletic department acting how it acts, again with Barda Barda's not firing Fran, and I just wanted everyone to know that. But I don't know what happens with our athletic department. I don't know what happens with a lot of things. So let's not it just sucks to lose 2 back-to-back years in the first round, and
it sucks not being. I know I'm saying the opposite. It sucks not being to a Sweet 16 since 1999. Right?
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan. That's just been a long drought, and like I said, there's a lot worse things than not going to the Sweet 16. But when you've been a fan since '99, there's been great teams, I thought, and it just hasn't happened. I was going to say, I think, we're not a program that's used to losing players early to the NBA. I think the transfer things right now, who do you think? Now, the 4 recruits coming in, I think those are pretty good and solid. How many guys off of the 11 current scholarship players, the 9 that have eligibility, how many of the 9 that have eligibility will be back next year?
It's a shot in the dark. Gary, you would care to take a shot?
Yeah, I don't have a thought on that. Yeah.
I would say probably 7. I think they lose a couple. And I don't know. I mean, they may lose. Actually, you know what, man? Now I'm thinking about Riley Mulvey and Josh Agundale. I cannot imagine both of those guys returning next year. Can you imagine that, Doug?
No, and that was what I didn't understand. Josh returning last year. He went into the portal, came back. What changed in a month? I don't know. We miss people.
They'll lose at least one of those big men. All right. Yeah. I think they'll lose at least one of those guards. So I'll say 7, maybe 6 will return. That would be my guess. It's just the era of the transfer portal in general, but especially with some of the issues, I think we're going to have attrition.
Yeah. Again, I don't know what else I really wanted to say. I just, hope everything works out. I really like having Coach Close on there. Like I said, always enjoyed that we didn't lose in the first round when you were a coach. Like I said, Tom Davis went 9-0, and a lot of those were 8-9 games and 7-10 games, and we dominated 10 seeds as a 7. I remember that Virginia game in '97 where Underwood dominated, and that's the other thing. I didn't know who was if Chris would take over this game today. I was waiting for it, and I thought Connor might or Phillip might at the end there, just because it's their last game.
You thought Connor was going to take over a game?
I thought Connor would do something. I'd not take over, at least do something. I know he's off. I know Connor has no offensive game, so I just was wondering who would do it. Because we're down there, and
that's part of the problem, right? When you need to come back and you don't have guards that can take over, it's a little bit different, right, Gary? Yeah. We go back to guard play.
Well, their guards were really quick. I mean, they were quicker than Iowa at every position, and so
more athletic
to penetrate and make plays is a lot more difficult. I would guess there's not a team in the entire Big Ten that's as quick as Auburn.
Yeah. Again, thank you guys. And I really appreciate it. Like I said, to the Hawkeye Nation, stay relaxed. Like Coach says, relax. You know?
Doug, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Am I being too hard on Fran and Iowa tonight?
No, I was the one that said turn up the dial. So I think, like I said, it's okay to be upset, Iowa Nation, Hawkeye Nation. I'm upset too. And I'm one of those people that's a pessimist and sometimes drink the Kool-Aid. We should be upset, but, we hope for some changes in the offseason. We'll talk about that later, Corey, hopefully.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate the call, sir, as always. Gary, am I being too hard on Iowa tonight?
Do your thing, Corey. You're a devoted fan.
That is right. That's absolutely right. I want them to win just as much as anybody else does. And like I said, I've been accused of being way too big of a homer, and I've been accused of being way too critical of why aren't you ever critical of Fran? You're always critical of Kirk. Why don't you? So hope nobody accuses me of that tonight. All right. Let's go to our phone line. All right, nobody there. Let's go to Tony. Tony the Tiger. How you doing, sir?
Good. Good. I wanted you to know. Well, first of all, can you hear me? I listened to that last episode. My mic sounded awful, and I realized you guys couldn't hear me. Can you hear me better? Hey,
your mic.
I'm honest.
Your mic has been.
I thought Corey was going to cut you, but he let you stay.
Can you hear me good today? Okay.
Yes, you're loud. Your mic is about as bad as Iowa's 3-point shooting.
Today or the last time?
Anytime they go away from Carver.
Fair enough. I wanted you to know it's also Austin 316. So this summer shandy's for you. It's a 316 day. Ryan mentioned that in the chat. But I wanted to challenge you on Virginia, Corey. You mentioned Virginia. Would you rather have the one national title they had or the 3 first-round exits they had? So they're either national title or bust in the last 4 years. The last 4 – no, I'm saying, like, everyone's talking about, like, Iowa's NCAA tournament success. Would we rather have one really good year or
what? Or what? Iowa.
I don't know. France 4-3 in first-round games. I will say that.
Okay. Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
I would rather have a national championship.
Okay. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
I couldn't care less about beating Davidson.
Okay.
I couldn't care less about beating Temple, and I could not care less about beating a 10-seed Cincinnati or whatever they were. So I don't care.
I formed the question poorly, so I apologize.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure you're asking me basically, would I rather have Virginia's recent tournament success or Iowa's recent tournament success? Yeah. To me, that's a no-brainer, but I appreciate the question. I answer it just fine.
I also am still wearing my man Fran shirt, so I don't think he's on the hot seat like Coach Close. I really don't. I guess the follow-up question to that is, like, who would we get to replace him for all these people that want to fire him? Because I want to what?
Bruce Pearl.
He's not. I want to ask you this though. I want to ask Coach Close this though. You're a coach, and you see Iowa's track record of coaches, and you see what Fran has done at Iowa since he's taken over. And if Iowa we'll say they let go Fran, which it seems like a lot of people want that to happen, would this be an attractive job to you as a coach? If that's what the school is going to do, that's what they've said. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's a Big Ten job. A lot of people want Big Ten jobs. Within the league, it's probably in the middle of the pack in terms of, recruiting advantages and things like that. But I would guess they would have a fair amount of interest just because it's a Big Ten job and it's a school with some tradition.
So, Gary, I'm just curious. You don't have to expound into why. If Fran, let's not even say by the way, nice dog, Tony. If Fran decided to leave, not forget fired, but if he decided to leave and that job came open, I'm just curious. Do you think Bruce Pearl would even consider it?
No.
So so why is that? Is it because you think it's a big step down from Auburn? Why?
No, I think he's comfortable at Auburn, and I think he's in the stage of his career where he's had some success there and he's got it going, and I don't think he'd make the move.
Well,
let's just say standards are a little different maybe in the SEC than in the Big Ten. I'll throw that out there, but as the unwritten, the unsaid thing.
Okay. Yeah. Let me just say one more thing. If we're going to talk about names, and again, I want to make sure I don't on the hot seat. But to act like, I'm not saying you're implying this, Tony, but to act like there aren't options, that there wouldn't be. You got a guy down on I-80 who would be an excellent candidate. His name's Darian DeVries. You got a guy, and by the way, strong connections to the Iowa program with his family. You got Chris Collins, the other direction on I-80, who'd be an excellent candidate for the job. I don't buy the fact that they wouldn't have options. I think they have plenty of options. I'm not saying they'd be better. I'm not saying they would definitely work out. But how about those two options? Two young guys, two up-and-coming guys who are both still, by the way, both still dancing. I think Northwestern, did they win, Gary?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't know. Both those guys would be, and they both have Iowa connections.
I mean, you're not wrong there.
Corey's stirring a fire here a little bit.
Yeah, no. I mean, I expected to him. I wanted to throw that question to him to see what type of answers he had. Like, what type of coaches do you think would realistically come here? I do not think Micah Shrewsbury would come here. His name's been thrown out of the chat. I don't think there's.
Why would he come here? Yeah, why would he?
I don't think there's any chance. The one thing I saw, what was it? And I didn't read the article. I saw the headline. Fran is like the 9th highest paid coach in the Big Ten. Is Collins making more or less than Fran right now at Northwestern?
I have no idea. Corey probably knows.
No, I have no clue. I don't follow that stuff.
Okay. I mean, if we're going to get the name that people want, and I mean, and they're not saying a name, but they're saying they want something different, like they're going to have to up the pay somehow for the 9th highest.
Well, I don't see again. I don't. Darian DeVries ain't making more than Fran.
No,
and I would almost guarantee you Chris Collins isn't making as much as Fran, especially after that season last year. Now he may get a raise. Maybe he got a raise during this season. After that season last year, he was on the brink of getting fired. So I think it's fair to say both of those guys would be interested in the Iowa job. I'd be surprised if they weren't.
I don't think Chris Collins would be.
I don't think he would be. I think he has a Duke connection. I think
he likes where he's at.
You think he'd rather coach at Northwestern with the academic requirements there that make it difficult to recruit, and the fact that, I mean, it's been a struggle there every year but this year. You don't think it'd be an excellent opportunity for him to strike while the iron's hot?
Possibly, but I don't know if that would be the opportunity you would look for. I don't know. Transfer within the league, it doesn't happen much. I think if he's going to go somewhere, it'll be out of the Big Ten.
Okay. Coach, I just want to know out of curiosity, are you watching a game currently right now?
No.
You're not? Okay. I didn't know if you had any interest in any of the late games.
I do. That's why I want to get rid of you so I can go watch them.
Did you want me to tell you scores?
Sure.
Right now, Tennessee's up 28-19, UCLA's up 18-5, and Houston is only up 3, 28-25 with a minute to go in the first half.
My team to win the bracket is already out.
Oh, I had Arizona in my final, so I'm the same with you. Like,
what I said as soon as Iowa lost? I said, you watch. Northern Kentucky will beat Houston. You watch.
It's a 1-point game now. Northern Kentucky just made a bucket.
That will happen, Tony. Northern Kentucky's going to beat Houston. That's just the way the cookie crumbles for Iowa. Anyways.
Are you going to have I'll just close with this. Are you going to have like a season wrap-up show, or is this pretty much it?
That's a better question for Gary. I'm always welcome. I'm always happy to do that. But what are we wrapping up?
When we've had a few days to relax and settle down, and
we can see. Maybe we'll get Gary. Maybe I can get Gary to Gary. You want to do a national championship post game?
Maybe
we can do that. We can treat that. We'll tentatively plan on that, Tony. We'll treat that as kind of our.
You're saying the national championship post game for when the Iowa women are playing, and we're doing a post game call-in show for that victory.
We'll do that too.
Sounds good. Thanks for everything, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, see ya.
Appreciate it. All right, folks. Let's keep going here. We've got James, who's been on hold for a long time. Thank you for calling our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line, James.
Sorry, I'm taking up your time watching games, Gary.
That's all right, James. You fire away, buddy.
First off, I want to say to those who say Fran's on the hot seat, I think I agree with Corey. You don't have any right to fire Fran and not fire Brian. Like, I feel like if you fire Fran and don't fire Brian, you know how much uprise that'd be. You know what I mean? Like, to me, they have no right to do that.
Well,
I mean, you have a right to do that, but like, you don't have no, like, if you do that, I think it'd be a very mixed signal, if that makes sense. That's what I mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know
That's what I mean. Like, it'd be a mixed signal. You can't. But one thing I want to say is, like, Chris ain't coming back either. You were talking about people ain't coming back. Chris is not coming back. Chris is gone. He's already said he's gone. His dad pretty much said he don't want to come back.
Wait. What do you mean? He said he's gone. What did he?
Because Chris Kenyon said something before where he was like it's not gonna help him coming back or something like that. Like he said it on something like on TV or something.
But Chris hasn't said that recently.
No,
correct?
But they said at the beginning of the year. Yeah, they said at the beginning of the year, but I don't know.
I think he's gone too, but I'm just until he announces that. I think Gary, do you think that's a question in our chat and it goes along with what James just asked. Clay wants to know, do you think he's ready to take that step?
Well, I'm not sure anybody's ready to take the step. He's obviously got work to do, but if you're a first round pick, it's hard to pass up. It's just the money's too great and the opportunity's there. And I think anybody that's going to draft him knows that it's a player that's got to develop like a lot of players have to be. I mean, there's a few. You look at the mock drafts. I mean, there's, other than a couple at the top there's no guarantees. They all got to develop. So he's going to go in the first round and make a good chunk of change, and that's hard to pass up, even whether you're ready or not.
For sure, and I've seen a lot of mocks where he's a first round pick. I think whether people say he's not, and that he's played soft, that he's missed a lot of shots, I think he just is, and I think his brother has a lot to do with that, with the way he's playing, so people can kind of see what he maybe might be able to mold into. Not saying he is going to be that. I'm not saying he's going to be Keegan at all, but they could see maybe what he could mold into, if that makes sense, with what Keegan's doing. I understand that, but that's how the NBA looks at things. They look at upside and potential. They don't really look at as much sometimes as they do, what are they now? You know what I mean? Like,
yep, I think he's gone, James. I think he's gone.
I think to be honest with you, I think Ulis and Bowen could both leave. I think you're not wrong for saying that.
I was just thinking, our caller earlier who asked me, was it Tony, who asked me what number of the 7 potential players back? I'd have to deduct another number from the 7 that I said, because I forgot about Chris Murray leaving early.
Yeah, I think
gone, so probably 6 would be my guess. I think you're going to return 6 at the most.
And the thing that scares you with that is, like, you don't know how well he's going to do in the portal. And I'm not saying Robracha played well. Robracha played tough. He did what he could do, right? He was the undersized center in the Big Ten, right? He was 6'9", playing against guys who were 6'10", 6'11". Obviously, Edie's 7'4". You can't really count that. You know what I mean? But he's undersized, playing the big, so he did his best. But to me, it's just scary because I don't know what he's going to do in the portal and where he's going to go. And I feel like, do you feel like Joe Toussaint stayed, it would have been better on defense? Because I feel like he gave us that grit and that defensive mentality, and then he left at the guard. And then we already have that. They weren't good
defensively with him.
I know, but he gave you a little bit more grit, and I feel like I could trust him a little bit more to guard people. Not maybe he's not great, but I feel like I could trust him more to guard people than I can Ulis, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Gary's that's probably fair.
Yeah, I don't think he would have been a difference maker, but he certainly would have helped.
But what do you think about the way they played defense today? They kept letting him drive, and they just kept giving him the right hand to drive. The Wendell Green do. Like, why didn't they try to cut off the one side and maybe give him to the left, and then it just seemed like they're just trying to force anything anyways. Just let him get to the rack as much as he could, and then.
Yeah, I agree. I thought their on-ball defense was not great, and I think going into the game, that's a big part of the defense that you had to take away, and they did not do it, and definitely hurt them.
What's your What's your thoughts? Do you guys think, like, I don't know, I looked at the recruits and I don't think any of the recruits really play defense either. So I don't know. You said you want him to go to defensive style, right, Corey? Or you want him to think a defensive personality, right? Like think of a defensive personality. But wouldn't he have to go a whole different direction with the guys he has on his roster to go defensive personality, or would he have to? You think maybe can mold some of those guys? You know what I mean? That's the scary part. It's like, would you have to get rid of everybody just to go defensive personality?
Well, I know I've repeated it over and over again. Maybe Gary's going to say I'm wrong, but you know, I bring up Michigan. I know that's just one example, but you know, John Beilein, those weren't great defensive teams. He hired a guy from Northern Illinois who understood the concept. He was willing to obviously work with this coach from Northern Illinois, and they became good on defense quickly, as did Chris Collins' bunch this year. So I think you need a guy who can. I don't think Iowa has guys who are incapable of playing defense, Gary. I just think they need to be taught. They need to be taught how to play better defense.
For sure. And it'll be interesting to see. But I appreciate everything you guys have done this year, especially you, Gary, for being on the show every day and giving us the insight. And I know it's kind of hard for me to be here with my other jobs and coaching all this, but I do want to say this too. Your knowledge I feel like, Gary, your knowledge has helped me a little bit in like understanding the game more. Obviously, I've been coaching for 5 years in the high school level, but like I'm starting to kind of understand a little bit more too on what I need to do to be a better coach as well. So I appreciate you on that retrospective and things too. And thank you for everything. And hopefully the women can keep winning. That's the big thing, at least, and get as far as they can. That'd be fun.
Sure.
Fun to watch them winning basketball at some point. But thank you guys for everything, and enjoy your night. And hopefully we can watch some good basketball tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate everybody being very kind in the chat as well. Everybody's being very complimentary of the show and appreciative to you. I appreciate the fact that people are doing that because, as you know, Gary, I much appreciate you spending time with me during this show for the last how many months, and it makes the basketball season. I'll say the same thing I say to Coach Brown. It makes Iowa basketball, Iowa athletics more exciting for me, more enjoyable, and it gives people an opportunity to kind of decompress and understand what's going on from a coach's perspective. So
I've enjoyed it too.
Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Kyle's on the line. Kyle, welcome to the show.
How you doing, guys?
Hey, Kyle.
Well, I'm sure I did tell Corey about this, but Coach, I'm sure you're not aware. I was involved in a little car accident last night. I was turning left at a four-way intersection, and I got rear-ended by somebody doing about 55 miles an hour going straight through the four-way. And the beginning of that second half reminded me of that car crash.
All joking aside, we're happy you're okay. That is you know. That's no joking matter. You're I shouldn't say you're lucky to be alive, but you're lucky that you're not. I know you got checked out, but thank goodness.
Yeah, I had two passengers that are maybe concussed, probably concussed, and I've had back issues in the past, so that I'm not feeling too great on that front. But besides that, it could have been way worse. We're really fortunate.
Keep in mind, Kyle, it's going to be worse in a day or two, so don't be signing any insurance settlements because it's.
Oh, I know.
Sometimes those things, man, I'm telling you, in all seriousness, those things crop up later. You go call Brad Van Meter down at State Farm and you talk to him.
I know. I had one of my golf teammates his dad's a lawyer, and right after he was on the phone with him, walking us through the whole thing. So it was really good. There's a lot of things about that I just would never have known about.
Yeah.
So obviously really disappointing. So I was just kind of doing some research, Corey, as you were talking about some of the tournament stuff and the team for next year. So I want to go through and just read you. So they're 4-7 in the tournament under Fran, and that obviously doesn't include the years that they didn't make it. You named a few of them. Their wins are against a 15 seed, a 7 seed, a 10 seed, and a 10 seed. And their losses, they have 3 losses to 2 seeds. They lost to a 7 seed, a 9 seed, an 11 seed, and a 12 seed. So it's not a I think much like the season, it's not really a problem of elite competition, because when we played higher level teams in the Big Ten, we did all right. When we played lower level teams in the Big Ten, I don't know what happened with that, but I don't know if we just didn't take them seriously or what happened, but that stood out to me a little bit as like they've only beaten a non-double digit seed once. and they've lost to 7 seed or lower 4 times. Like that. The more you look at that resume, the more it looks shaky.
Yeah, this season has been a very strange series of events. I mean, just to see I don't know that I would venture to say we've never seen, Gary, we've probably never seen under Fran that stark contrast of shooting as well as they did at home versus how badly they did on the road. That is a weird stat, and you can attribute it to, they're streaky, but it's such a divide when you look at the away versus home stats. And
so
they've shot very well at home, Kyle. They've
yeah, they have
beats out at home. That's the thing. We can say they're not a great shooting team, but how are they shooting so well at home?
So of the players that averaged 10 or more minutes a game, who do you think was the best shooter on the team from 3?
From when?
Anybody that averaged 10 minutes or more per
10
game
minutes
for the
more.
season.
From 3, probably somebody we don't expect. Is it like Ulyss or like Perkins?
Patrick.
Yeah. Did Kyle just leave? Did Kyle just drop the mic? He said Patrick and he's gone. All right, let's bring him back. Kyle, are you back?
Sorry, I got a phone call, so I got booted out of the.
That was well timed, by the way.
Yeah, it was funny. But yeah, Patrick was as good as we had this year from 3 for the players that played significant minutes. He shot 35%. He was our best 3-point shooter of the ones that played significant minutes. And we had.
And what did the team shoot? What did the team shoot?
Let me see. The team shot 34% from 3.
Yeah, so it was an average team at best.
Yeah, they didn't.
We recognize this, that we said it before. I'll say it again. A Fran McCaffrey team cannot be average from 3. They can't be.
No,
now,
they can't.
I will say this. You're sort of right, Gary. I can see why you said earlier that they kind of overachieved, because the fact that they won as many games they did, they were 9 seed, they made the tournament with the lottery loss of Chris Murray, the loss of Bohannon, the loss of Toussaint. They were average from 3, and they still managed, and they were as bad as they were when you look at the defensive metrics, and they still won as many games as they did. That is, in a weird roundabout way, it's sort of impressive. It doesn't take away from the frustrations from the tournament.
Right. And they lost McCaffrey. Patrick really was pretty much non-existent.
Well, Patrick's our only. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but I think Patrick's our only 4-star basketball recruit since 2019. So the last 4 years, he's the only 4-star we've had. He's had. I saw on Twitter earlier today. He's gone 3 full seasons of basketball. He's got 2 20-point games in his career, and both of those were in losses. For a 4-star recruit, I understand he's had health problems, and I want to be sensitive to that fact. But I knew him in high school. Most of his health problems that he has now, he had then when he was a 4-star recruit. So it's baffling to me that he's not, because he was a great high school player. It's baffling to me that he's not a little bit better at this point.
Well, like I said, I think we should. I think what you said is right. Be sensitive to his issues, and he's, so much of the game is mental. Gary, I'm sure you'd attest to that.
No doubt.
He's dealt with some demons, and we respect the fact that he took a step aside during the season. I'll be anxious to see what he does moving forward. Yeah. So I wish him the best. I hope he comes back, and I hope he can. But I want him to come back if he wants to come back. I mean, some guys, Gary, some guy. I mean, I think about DJ Carton. Didn't DJ Carton just walk away? I mean, I know he's back in the game now, but didn't he kind of walk away like Patrick did?
I think so. Yeah.
And sometimes guys need to do that. And I think it's for the best. I don't know what DJ Carton's situation was, but Patrick needs to be there if he wants to be there and he's able to be there. But if he, his health is more important, his mental health is more important. So you're right, though, Kyle, as far as recruiting is concerned, he's had his moments, but 4-star, is he living up to that? I don't know. I think
the more appropriate way for me to phrase that is probably that it's a hit to the program when your best player in 4 years, regardless of what we'll not put any of the blame on him necessarily because of what he's gone through, but no matter what the cause is, it's a hit to a program when your best recruit in 4 years is struggling in that manner. But I also found it interesting in those shooting splits too, of the players that averaged 10 or more minutes, Sanford and Patrick were the only ones above 34%. And if we go back to last season, I've got last year's numbers in front of me too. Last year we had 4 shooters that were above 36.5% that were key contributors. So you're talking, I mean, we basically had our shooting cut in half, or our top level shooting cut in half just from last season, which in a way makes it oddly impressive that we were third in KenPom offense with that bad shooting.
Right. Yeah. And like, again, they won as many games as they did.
Yeah, I know.
They're over
It's
500.
weird because like watching that game, I felt so disappointed, and yet like you look at the big picture, and there's arguments to feel disappointed, and there's arguments to feel like, man, we got maybe more than we could have gotten out of this team.
Yeah, but again, the tournament struggles specifically, that is a pattern of behavior regardless of personnel.
Yeah,
and that's the problem. I
Yeah.
stand by that vehemently. That is a problem.
So it feels to me like over the last few years, obviously we've had some great talent. We've had Luka Garza, we've had both of the Murray twins. It feels like Fran picks out a player in the offseason and kind of makes that player his centerpiece of his offense. And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, but if that is his mindset and he kind of pins a number one option in mind, like in the offseason, I'm curious to know, who would you guys pick as that number one option? And do you feel good about having that player as the Luka Garza, Keegan Murray, Chris Murray figure in the offense?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think he likes balance. I think he likes attacking, and I think guys got green lights. So I'm not sure about that, to tell you the truth. But as far as next year goes, boy, it's wide open. With what they're losing and what's coming back, it's hard to tell. I mean, I think Peyton can make a big jump. He's got something there. He hasn't quite figured it out, but he's young. I think he's got a chance to be a really good player with some development. And Tony's had his moments, and he'll be a senior, so that's two pretty good places to start. But obviously, they've got some significant holes to fill, and guys have got to get better. Or, like Corey said, they may have to fill it from the outside. So it's going to be an interesting offseason.
Yeah. Another thing too, just to note about next year's rosters, I really felt like watching that game and watching a lot of games throughout the season that, like, as much as Iowa does get pushed around in games, certainly that Auburn game, TCU, games like that, it does feel like when they respond better to the physicality and they respond better to teams trying to push them around, it usually starts with Phillip and Connor. So the other concern I have about the roster next year is who is going to be that player that steps up and provides that like toughness or that kind of edge. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I sort of see it in Tony. I don't know about Bowen. Is there anybody else that I'm missing here?
You probably know that more than I, Corey.
I mean, just you're talking about just a toughness and edge, like a physical thing, or what?
Physical, mental. I mean, I'm just like, if somebody challenges Phillip or Connor in any way, they're gonna try and get up in their face. Phillip's gonna try and get physical. You heard him on the broadcast. He's dunking the ball and he's going, like, he's screaming after he dunks it.
Yeah,
like just those kind of little boosts. I don't see that next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, and I don't think you can rely on a freshman to come in. Like, I don't think, Owen Freeman's going to be that guy for it. No, I think that's a fair point, and I didn't think Chris Murray was that guy. I think that's one thing Chris probably, physically he's still got some growth. I think I still see him kind of weak to the rim and not taking it up strong and having problems finishing through contact. He had one play, Gary. It was a 5-point swing. They have a fast break 2-on-1 down the court. He allows the Auburn defender to alter his shot horribly. And I mean, it was a clear 2-on-1 for Iowa late in that second half. Would have cut the lead down to, I don't know what it was. It ends up being a 3 for Auburn on the other end. Plays like that, like, you got to finish better. I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, Tony, I think, is a tough dude, but he's been so up and down. I think the portal, kind of like football, Kyle, I think the portal's going to have to be utilized on a number of levels, more so than I would have guessed if you had asked me a couple months ago.
Yeah, because they really only have, if one of the guards leaves, they they've got maybe 5 players that I would trust to contribute. I mean, the players that contributed at all this year that are coming back are, well, we don't know if they're coming back, but Tony Eulis, Pat Sanford, Dix, and Bowen, and then the other 4 that you're left with are Nimmers, Kingsbury, Laquetta, and Mulvey. So there's a lot of holes in that roster. There's 4 or 5 probably playable players that you need to get. Maybe not 4 or 5, but at least 3 or 4.
Yeah. Kyle, appreciate you calling in, sir. And
Thanks, Kyle.
All right. We appreciate you guys with the post-game coverage.
Yep,
You bet.
absolutely. Thank you, sir. All right. I apologize. We're going over, Gary. This is the final official show of the season, so I hope you're okay with us being a little bit overboard. Ryan says, "Is Bo Ryan bored in retirement?" I think there's some cynicism there. Tragus says, "Can we get Phil Jackson to come out of retirement?" Drew wants Coach K. I don't want Coach K. I'm not real fond of Coach K. Jesse says Coach Close wants to come out of retirement. Let's see here. Dick Bennett.
Only if Corey would be my assistant.
Oh, well, that's a given. You don't even got to ask that question, Gary. I can be your defensive specialist because I know a lot about it, right? And Ryan says he wants Rick Pitino to come to Iowa. So lots of ideas out there, Gary, of how to fix the problems. But I know it's more complicated than that. Bob wants to know, Coach, are teams that don't play good defense intimidated by ones that do? They can't handle something they don't know.
That's a good question. I think when teams can't score, it can be very, very frustrating. I don't think there's any doubt. And it can snowball. I think there's no question that you can really set a tone of a game by playing well at that end. Maybe more so than offensively, just because it's a little more intimidating. No, I'd agree with that.
All right, let's go back to our call-in line. Thank you for calling our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
Yeah, hi. Is this Corey?
Yes.
Is this Corey?
Yes, it is.
I'm from Aurelia, Iowa, and I wanted to call and tell you that you guys have a great show, and I enjoy it. And I think Iowa just plain did not show up tonight. And I don't know if you guys realized it, but the center from the other team that was wearing the white headband, he was really following Iowa a lot tonight. And they weren't calling him. Did you see him when he shoved our center down to the floor?
Yeah, well, they called that one. Yeah, he was a handful. I think he was a tough customer tonight. I thought he was by far the best inside player.
But you thought just to be fair, Gary, you thought the officiating was okay, correct?
I didn't think the officiating cost him the game. I'll put it that way.
I agree with that.
No, it did, but there was a lot of fouls that he had an Iowa player that didn't call. But that's beside the point. But I just wanted to call and tell you guys you have a great show, and the Iowa women are still in there, and hopefully they can make the Final Four. And the men's wrestling team's doing really good, and it sounds like we have got a good baseball team. So you guys have a good night. Thank you.
And sir, real quick,
Great call.
I didn't catch your name, sir.
My name's Kevin.
Kevin.
Bruckman. Yeah.
Good to meet you,
up
sir.
by Storm Lake, Iowa.
From where?
Up by Storm Lake, Iowa. It's
Okay.
called Aurelia, Iowa.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Appreciate you
All
watching.
right, well,
appreciate you
thank
calling
you.
in.
I listen to you guys every week.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that.
Yeah, and Coach Close, I saw the show on Chris Street, and it was a really good show about him. I think you did a really good job on him.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Kevin. Appreciate that call. Good to hear from a first-time caller, even on a night like tonight. Brock, well, by the way, Joe, thank you. I had the super chat up a second ago. Thank you for that super chat. Said great show. Thank you, Joe. Brock says, what were the Auburn fans saying to Patrick? Sorry if you've answered that. I don't know. Did you catch that, Gary? Apparently they were talking to him, whatever. People are going to be people. Dom says, this is the Corey I'm here for. So Gary, there's certain people that like rants, and so I guess I fulfilled that obligation tonight.
I get it.
Lemansky says, Gary, you won't keep you up from the game. Won't keep you up from the games. Money instead.
Is he trying to buy me?
Yeah, I got to forward this on to you, Gary. Thank you, Lemansky, for the super chat. I know it looks like I said somebody else earlier said that Gary looks like Harpo says Gary looks like he's tired, so we're going to try to let him go. I'm trying to run quickly here.
Staying up late watching these games.
Yeah. Joe says, how did Corey talk Coach Close into coming on this show? Great program until next year. I don't think I had to talk you into it, Gary. You
sounded like fun.
And I appreciate you coming on at the end of our second season together. I hope we can do a third. We still don't know the future for your son. Is he going to be a part of the team next year?
Yeah, we don't know that yet. He's hoping to be, but that's not high on the priority list right now. But in the off season, hopefully we can get an answer.
Comment here from Jason. He says, Coach Close, how did Tom Davis's teams always out-rebound their opponent?
Well, it was something that was strongly emphasized. Maybe the first stat we ever went over with a team was who was our leading rebounders. And we worked very hard at it, and it was well taught. So it was an emphasis that he felt was important in winning games. And so we were pretty good at it. There were some years where we led the country in rebounding.
All right, let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
Hi, Corey. Hi, Coach Close. This is Matt from Marshalltown, and
my wife's from Marshalltown, Matt.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for taking my call. Yeah, disappointed with the loss tonight. Not to be a bad Iowa fan, I did expect Iowa to lose, but you know, I was hopeful.
We all were.
But yeah. But I think that I give a lot of credit to Phillip and Connor. It was definitely apparent they played their hearts out tonight.
Yeah.
I think
those two guys leave it all on the floor.
Phillip had a heck of a year.
Yes, he did.
Absolutely. I don't really think people give Phillip enough credit. I mean, this season, I think he was everything we could have asked for.
He's an all Big Ten player. That speaks for itself. He came out of nowhere to get that. If he'd have said that at the beginning of the year, they would have probably wondered what you were thinking. So no, he worked extremely hard, continued to improve, and at times was the best player on the floor.
I agree. I also, I was disappointed with Chris's play tonight, and I think he'll be the first to tell you that. But and I know some people want to get on him, but you know what? I'll give Auburn credit too. They smothered him pretty good, and overall, they didn't make it easy for anything to go tonight.
They're quick.
Mm-hmm.
Well coached.
And I was listening to the post game, the post game press conferences. I kind of agree with Fran a little bit because I've heard Coach Pearl say, "Oh, the SEC, we're a little quicker, and that's our difference between the Big Ten." Kind of like the football comparison. And I kind of agree with Fran a little bit. I'm like, there's some fast teams in the Big Ten, and you got to be ready for anything. So, but I do think it was a factor, but yeah, we just didn't handle it as well as we should have.
Yeah, and if you're not quick enough on the perimeter, then okay. So let's assume that the Big Ten is just lacks quickness in the backcourt, which I think you're right. That's not always the case, but let's assume that to be the case. Then Fran needs to recruit quicker guards in gearing up for March Madness and playing teams outside of the conference. So, yeah, none of it holds water. I mean, as far as making excuses, I know you're not making excuses, Matt, but you got to recruit quicker guards.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I was excited with Desante Bowen too. But I mean, hey, that's why Fran's paid the big bucks and I'm not. So,
well,
I also kind of another thing Fran said in the post game, and he's mentioned this 2 or 3 times. Like, do you agree that the team was as prepared? Because he kept saying, this is the best schedule the toughest schedule I've put in front of this team. How much of a factor do you really think that was? I mean, because it really didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
he can say that. And at the time, I would have agreed with him. I don't think it was that tough of a schedule. I mean, they played Clemson, who didn't make the tournament. They played Seton Hall, who didn't make the tournament. They played Georgia Tech, who didn't make the tournament. They beat Iowa State at home. They lost. They did play TCU, a good tournament team, but I don't think the schedule. I think we're maybe overhyping. I think maybe Fran's giving himself a little bit too much credit for that. Gary, your thoughts on the schedule?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at it, but a lot of times teams that you think are going to be better end up not being as good. There's nothing you can do to control that. So I think if you looked at it going in, it was a pretty competitive schedule. As it turned out, some of those teams underachieved, and it maybe wasn't as strong as we thought it was in the beginning.
Yeah, I agree.
And I got to admit, I was thinking back all the way to that TCU game. I kind of think that's where you thought about, okay, if this team goes against a team that's maybe physically tougher, they're going to have problems. And I kind of think those teams like that all gave Iowa a lot of trouble, especially today. So, I think I kind of agree with you guys. I don't think it was as tough as Fran thinks, but at the end of the day, the Big Ten's always tough, especially this year. So he has some leeway there, but overall, I kind of overall agree that originally I thought this was going to be a season that the way it turned out was what I thought it would, but given the numbers that I think it was Kyle provided earlier, I think they overachieved a little bit, but all you can, and I also say, guys, Fran is not going to get fired anytime soon. It's not going to happen.
No.
Although I do think Notre Dame is a possibility. And I think, it's possible, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yep, absolutely, Matt. I appreciate you calling in, sir, and appreciate your support.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's going to Notre Dame, but I've said it before. I think if there's one place he goes, it might be Notre Dame, unless like a Duke or North Carolina came calling, and obviously those jobs are out of his league, and both those teams have new young coaches. So Notre Dame, I think, is the only possibility. I don't expect that to happen, but I guess you never say never. Tragus44, appreciate the super chat. He says, thanks for a great show. Your show was like therapy for us after a painful loss. Circle Herc, appreciate that, Tragus. Circle Herc, now that the season's over, how is Gary going to enjoy his off season? Well, he's going to golf, right?
Well, we still got March Madness. I'm going to enjoy that for the next couple of weeks. I enjoy watching the NBA playoffs, and those are around the corner. And then, when it gets a little warmer, get to play a little golf with my daughter. I'm looking forward to that immensely. So, got some good things to look forward to.
Appreciate this. I believe this is a second super chat from Tragus. Thanks, Corey and Gary, for a great show. Thank you. Appreciate that, Tragus, for your support. Tony wants to know if Coach Close is going to be back next year. We're not going to put you on the spot, Gary, but you know.
I don't know. I've got a lot of people after me, so I'm going to have to wait on my offers. I'm a free agent.
You've had more
all my offers.
The Chris Street special aside, you've had more cameos on television this year than, more than last year. I mean, they showed you a young Gary Close in the TV
a few years ago.
Yeah, you had a lot of hair back in the day. I mean, not to say you don't have a good, nice head of hair now, but you had a lot of hair. You did a lot of hair.
Did I? Yeah. Well, that was the style back then. You got to go with a style, Corey.
Yeah. So, and I believe who mentioned you? Was it, I think Fran mentioned you yesterday in his press conference, his pregame press conference. I don't know if you caught that, but I
did not. What reason?
I think he said, we got a lot of people around this program that suck, and Gary Close is one of them. Just joking.
He was right on target with that.
No, I believe he was talking about Bruce Pearl and the connections to Iowa, and just I believe that's the context. So complimentary things.
Those are some good years.
Yep.
And I was with him at Stanford.
James wants to know, why does it seem like we fell off at the end of the year? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
5 of their last 7.
Yeah. That's. I don't know if you could say one thing. I think it was a combination of things, and just didn't play well at both ends of the floor. And it's frustrating because you saw glimpses of it but just from a consistency standpoint, they couldn't sustain it, and it's always difficult to see the season come to an end. It's not fun.
All right, let's go to Ryan on our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. You didn't think you'd get through a show, Gary, without a
I not believe he got on here again.
I'm not
Ryan,
Ryan.
hey,
I'm
Ryan,
not Ryan anymore.
Ryan, oh,
You know what my name is.
Move your camera down so we're not looking at your ceiling.
Hold on a second.
There you go.
There we go. He's sad.
That's a lot better.
Sad Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Sad
Hawkeyes.
So before, excuse me, I got a couple points, but before I get into the game, Coach Close, I'm just dying to ask you. 2015 Wisconsin against 1987 Iowa. Who wins? You know,
That's
obviously in their prime.
That's a good. You know that Iowa team had
7 NBA players.
4 starters that played in the NBA. I guess it depends on what side, on what team I get to coach. Whatever one that would be would probably win.
Can't disagree with you there, and I don't know why you never were a head coach, to be honest with you, because you're obviously a fantastic coach. They put a screenshot on some sweat hog up close with a very, very dark-haired, handsome man in the background in the game today.
That's my brother.
Your brother, yes. Well, you have a handsome brother. Anyway, I just want to thank you so much for taking on the highs and lows this
Putting
season.
up with you.
Pardon me?
And putting up with you.
You're not gonna start crying, are you, Ryan?
Maybe. When I'll tell you what, I'll tell you this much. I did have a little bit of a tear in my eye with Connor leaving the game after he fouled out. That man put his heart and soul into this program for 6 years. I will always, always appreciate and revere Connor McCaffrey. 9 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists. He always did the dirty work, never worried about being, the top scorer. But he was so instrumental in our success, or whatever success we had. And leads the nation in assist to turnover ratio, right? I mean, the guy's a winner. He's an absolute winner. And anyone who doesn't appreciate Connor McCaffrey, I'm sorry, but that dude's a stud.
I appreciate Connor McCaffrey. However, I think he's very wise what he's doing. I think he's making a really good decision. You heard him recently talk about how he wants to go away from Iowa to coach.
Absolutely.
I think that's such a smart decision. And I'm not saying he learned from the Ferentz situation, but I think there's such a stigma right now with Iowa and nepotism, and he absolutely deserves he deserved the minutes he got throughout his entire career. But I think it's smart for him to go somewhere else. I think he'd be a good coach, but I think that'd be maybe foolish to start out here.
If Connor, if Connor was a head coach someday in the next, I don't know, within the next decade, which I think is very attainable, my first team is always Iowa, and then my second team is whatever team Connor is coaching. I mean,
as if I'm coaching.
Well, maybe you're coaching Iowa.
I have the answer here. If you're coaching, you're going to lose anyways because I'm one of your assistants.
Oh,
no, because I think Corey will put an emphasis on defense. Anyway, couple quick points because I don't want to take your time. I think Gary answered 1987 Iowa is the best team he ever coached.
Certainly the most talented.
No doubt. I mean, certainly different era a little bit because you had 4-year players.
He gave me a call and we were talking about that team a little bit.
When was that?
A couple days ago. He gave me a shout and we talked about that because, you know, the NCAA tournament's going, and talked about our runs and lamenting that we should have won it all that year.
On paper, Wisconsin 2015 isn't that close, but they had the results. Couple
Gary,
thoughts.
you care to comment on that, Gary? You look like you were a little.
That's probably true. I mean, if you look at how many players are on the NBA, it's not even close.
Maybe a better coaching job in 2015.
Well, Dr. Tom Davis was a pretty damn good coach.
Well, so was Bo Ryan.
Well, that's why I asked if Bo Ryan was bored in retirement. I love Bo Ryan.
Was that you?
Yeah. In 1990, 1991, my dad and I went to University of Dubuque game against UW Platteville. And he said to me, like as emphatic as can be, if anything happened to Tom Davis or he wants to move on or whatever would happen to him, Bo Ryan is our coach. And I said, Dad, he's a D3 coach. Are you kidding me? Well, he knew what he was talking about. And he's the same guy who I have never heard this man, who I swear knows college basketball, high school basketball. He says Brock Harding is the best point guard recruit in the Fran McCaffrey era. So I did some, on the envelope math here. Next year we'll have Harding, Perkins, Peyton, probably Patrick starting. We need 2 portal bigs, Owen, or, 1 portal big, plus you got Owen, Dembele, Price Sanford, and I hope to God still Bowen. And that would be 10 players, so, you can pick out a 9, maybe 8, whatever. We still might be okay. But I'm telling you right now, if you watch that Moline championship game, this Brock Harding, he looks like, blast from the past, Coach Close, Jay Burson from Ohio State, a 6', 155 guy who shoots the lights out. He passes like a gazelle. He's
Can he defend? Can he defend, Ryan?
He's quick and he defends. Now, let's go back, 6 years now. Jordan Bohannon. Jordan Bohannon wasn't anything close style-wise to Brock Harding. What Jordan Bohannon was a sharpshooter who could handle the ball very well. He did not turn the ball over and, but Jordan wasn't quick enough to be a real solid defender. He was not a good defender. He was the greatest clutch player in Iowa history for sure.
Well, we don't know that Brock Harding is going to be quick enough to be a good Big Ten defender either. There's a totally
watch his tape and get back to me.
You're looking at
watch his tape. Watch his tape. This guy is quick. He is quick, lightning quick.
Okay.
He just doesn't look the part, but he's lightning quick.
I'm not saying he's not. I sure hope he is, but I'm just saying, at that size, he better be lightning quick. And we're talking lightning quick at the Big Ten level. That's why I thought he's going to redshirt, because I think he needs to get bigger. I hope I'm wrong on that.
You're going to be wrong. Tape this. Brock Harding.
All right.
I mean, when we play the first time. Hey, when we play Sisters of the Blind of Community College of Texas Corpus Christi in the first game, he may not be the starter, but believe you, he's going to be.
Did you say Corpus? You say Corpus Crispy?
Christi.
Okay.
CC. Or whoever, the Sisters of the Blind, whoever is, that's our first game of the year. But it kind of brings me, what is Tyler Eulis even giving us?
Aaron
excuse me. Aaron Eulis. What is he even bringing us at this point? He had 2 points. Look at the stat line. The only thing that wasn't a 0 in the stat line besides the uncontested, garbage layup, was 0 for 2 from 3 and 1 turnover. 15, 16 minutes of play. I'm sorry, but that is the black hole of Iowa basketball right now. Tony Perkins, go back to the formula of why you did so well against Indiana, why you single-handedly beat Illinois, Iowa State. When Tony Perkins is aggressive and the alpha, we win. And the reason Auburn won was because they still had guards that penetrated to the basket. They know they're not a great three-point shooting team. I think the stat line was 38% for them, and I think they're like a 32% team on the whole. Yeah. But they found other ways to score, and and we just don't adjust. We need Phil Parker to be an assistant basketball coach on top of his duties as defensive coordinator for football.
He might do that.
And he'd probably be pretty good.
Right.
We need a philosophy change.
Yeah. Well, I'm not disagreeing to that. I need to cut you loose, though, because Gary's going to be mad because we got a couple games at halftime, and I got to wrap this thing up so he can watch some basketball.
Well, go Crooked Calvin over Bruce Pearl in the next round. Thank you, guys.
How's Houston doing? Are they back in front?
Sounds like they're up 3. Somebody just put that in the chat.
Ooh,
no, they're up not. No, excuse me. They're up 9 now. They're up 9 now.
That's over.
Shane says, "Thank you for
Did
the
that kid play? The other guard play?
Sasser? I don't think so.
Oh, if they don't have him, then they're Auburn might beat them.
They're very beatable. Yeah. Chris doesn't seem to have be quick enough to be a legitimate factor in the NBA. And that's the question that that's not the question here from Chad, but Chad wants to know what's the probability of Murray coming back. Ben says if he has a different name and isn't the twin of Keegan, are people still looking at him as being a pro? First of all, the scouts aren't solely looking at Keegan and saying, well, Chris is going to do the same thing, right? I mean, they're still looking at Chris on tape and watching him.
Third-team All-American.
Exactly. Yeah, he's first-team All-Big Ten for a reason, not because of who his brother was. That's Charles wants to know, does he go pro? I think he does, Gary. Final thoughts on his decision?
Yeah, your first-round pick, you pretty much can't pass it up.
And Ben says, Coach Close, can you briefly talk about the move from Stanford to Iowa? Does the head coach keep you posted all along about what's up and talk about keeping you all together? How did that work?
Well, it was kind of interesting. The first place that Coach Davis looked at was Houston. And he was very close to taking that. And then Iowa got involved with Bump Elliott. And being from the Midwest, we had a chance to meet Bump, and anybody that had a chance to meet Bump knew in the first minute that there's nobody greater than Bump Elliott. And I think he completely sold him on coming back to the Midwest and the potential of the program. And so it took a 180 pretty quickly, and so I put my cowboy boots away and got out my bib overalls and headed Midwest.
We're happy you did, Gary. Jason says, Coach, was Tom Davis the father of the zone defense? Oh, excuse me, zone offense.
Tom had a very unique zone offense that was copied by many people. He was a terrific zone offensive coach. And I don't know very many people that are running it now just because it's been so long, but he was a really good zone offensive coach. Had some very unique plays, had the shot lob play, and had some really good plays against the 1-3-1. He was a really, really good zone offensive coach.
Lansky, thank you for the super chat. He says, I'm confident Mrs. Close will have a to-do list this summer. More bird chirping next year from the computer needed. Nobody as handsome as Gary.
You think I could maybe get the chirps going?
That is a great, that is the best comment. Those 4 or 3 sentences together is the best series of sentences we've ever
got to call in.
Yeah, he hasn't called in. We got one final person on the line, but it's not. I don't think it's Lemansky. And Lemansky, the other super chat, says, Ryan, the only humans I find who said Corey is wrong are Gary and Mrs. Brad. Thank you, Lemansky. Appreciate that. Ryan says, does Coach think the Big Ten is near as good now as the 80s and 90s? I don't think it's even close.
I agree.
Okay. Simple enough. And James says, Coach, just wanted to say I appreciate you coming on the show week after week, and I love your perspective on.
I've got him fooled.
We got all of us fooled. All right, I think this is our final call of the night. We're approaching 2 hours, and Gary's going to get tired and angry, hangry, whatever. Let's go to our final caller of the night. Thank you for calling our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. Who's on the line?
This is Chuck.
Hey, Chuck.
Chuck, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. First, I want to say thanks for providing a platform for us to get on here and vent. Secondly, Coach Close for coming on and providing some conversation. One thing I will say on you guys' previous comments about Virginia and kind of what you've done for me in the past, I will say whether it's our football team or basketball team, I'll give up many bowl games or NCAA tournaments for a national title or a ring. That's all I will say about that. The question I kind of have for Coach Close, if that's all right, is I was an up-tempo transition offense. I understand how to get that, take care of the ball, try to get some missed shots, score in transition. But the question I have is where does our 2 or 3 man basketball half-court game go? And I think that's where our biggest hiccup is, besides defensively, late rotations. But when it comes to offense, and we're in the NCAA tournament, Big Ten tournament, we seem to screen, pick and roll consistently, but we take bad shots. But where is that 2 to 3 man game or a half court game come into play? It almost seems like a lost art, or particularly with Fran and his style of coaching. Why aren't we posting Chris up? Why aren't we posting Rabracha, having guys cut to the lane, or having Perkins drive, kick out, and having more shooters, like Corey was saying earlier, have more shooters on there and space the floor? I never see that with Fran's offense, and it seems like that's why we become stagnant, along with the poor defense, the late rotations. I get that stuff, but I guess my question would be to that is you've got your assistant coaches on the bench. Do any of them, whether it's I know Spurrow's gone, I can't remember who the other coach is along with Gayton, but my question would be is what do the other coaches do with Fran and coaching the team? Does anybody take any type of defensive schematics as far as what to do? And do they do really? I guess what is their job as assistant coaches, being that you were in that position yourself? I mean, what are they doing with the players besides what Fran's doing?
Yeah, it varies with each head coach and how they want to break responsibilities down, and I don't know specifically with Iowa how they do it. I mean, I don't know what we did. I would say the big part of the assistant's job is player development. A big part is scouting, game preparation. I think very, very important. Recruiting obviously is very important. And then in terms of the teaching and the on-court stuff, it varies from coach to coach. Some coaches have a defensive coordinator and a guy that calls out the plays, and the coach just kind of coaches. Some other people do it differently. So it kind of varies from team to team. And I don't know specifically how Iowa does it, but it varies a lot.
Because I don't think Fran's obviously a bad coach, but I do think based on over 13 years, I'll kind of piggyback on what Corey said previously, is you get kind of to that point where like, hey, look, I'm tired of getting to the first round or a few times the second round, but we haven't been to the Sweet 16 in a long time. Obviously, you're even past that, but it seems like opposing teams will scout us, know what we do. They'll be prepared for the screens up top, or they'll be prepared for the, pick and rolls, but we get stagnant and our players seem to get lost because they kind of don't know what they're doing. Once we don't get the screen that we want, then it turns into a bad shot. But where's the half-court offense come into play at with things? And I know you probably can't answer that because you're not in Fran's mind, but I just wonder, does that seem to be a lost art nowadays when it comes to offense or basketball just in general, because teams are wanting to score and outscore the other team? But it seems like NCAA teams, when they get to this time of the year, Big Ten tournament, it's those half-court teams who can play defense and score in the half-court and run plays seem to be the ones that advance. Maybe it's just
no. I agree. I think what you'll see in those type of games are usually more low scoring, unless it's just a blowout. His teams have consistently been very high in analytics and the measuring offensive efficiency. I think this year in the half court they were not as good as they have been in the past. I think part of that's personnel. They just didn't have as much talent as they've had in the past in terms of knocking shots down, posting up, attacking the basket. So I think that had something to do with it. In fact, I think from the personnel that they had and the way their offense turned out was pretty impressive because I think in a lot of ways they were limited offensively this year and still scored at a pretty high rate and didn't turn a ball over. But I agree with you. When they got into a half court situation a lot, they weren't nearly as effective. And I think that had a lot to do with the personnel more than the actual schemes and things.
Well, in that last point, I'll bring up. I'll let you go. I appreciate you guys taking the time for one. But I've had a hard time looking at our team and I've watched our Iowa team for a long time, and within the Fran McCaffrey era, the only time I've ever seen really a half-court type of an offense is when we had Luka and posting up and playing off of Luka. Tyler Cook, we did it a little bit, but other than that, I can't remember off the top of my head where we would run that type of an offense. And to me, when you go into halftime, you call timeouts or you game prep with the assistant coaches. You're doing the adjustments. You're doing, if that transition game isn't working, and you're not getting those, I guess, turnovers, or maybe you're turning the ball over, and the other team slows you down, and you have to go to that half-court offense. That's how we lose games, because we can't manifest anything. And I get sometimes it is talent, it is player as far as acquisitions and how they play. But I do feel like you guys talked about earlier, coaching has a lot to do with that, and getting the right players in the right lineups to do that execution. And when they don't do it on a repetitive basis, and when they depend too much on the transition game, when the half-court games come into play, we don't know what we're doing. We're lost.
Yeah. No, I think there's some truth to that. I think if you looked at it closely, they had some makeable shots they didn't make, whether it was around the basket or open threes. It just was not a real good shooting team in either spot, and that makes your offense look not as effective. I think if you look at the quality of shots they got, for the most part, not entirely, because I think at times they did have to force some bad shots up or took some quick bad shots, but for the most part, they got pretty good quality shots. They just didn't have as many shot makers this year as they've had in the past.
Do you think Dix would have been more beneficial at times to help spread the floor as far as with him?
I was surprised they played Dix on the ball. I think he's more of a shooter. I don't know if he's a point guard. I would have liked to have seen him more running the wing and like what Sanford does rather than handle the ball, but they were limited there. So I think that's probably the reason why he did play there. I think that kid's got a chance. I like him. So I'm hoping he'll have a big summer, and if they can get some point guards, they could play him off the ball, and I think he could be more effective doing that.
Well, I won't keep you guys. I appreciate the time, appreciate the conversation.
Good questions.
And enjoy the show.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
All right. We appreciate, Gary, you taking the last 2 hours. This is, we all knew this was a possibility. It sucked. There's no other way to describe having been one and done.
When it ends, it's not fun. That's for sure. There's a finality to it that, and you can imagine how the coaches feel and the players feel. They're feeling even worse than we are.
And Christopher wants to know, why would Aaron drive to the hole on 95% of the times? Why would Aaron drive to the hole on 95% of the times and not go to the hole for a layup? He would always pass it. I don't think he drives enough. I think Aaron needs to be more aggressive. He's not going to be a jump shooter. He needs to attack a bit more, and I think that's probably a lack of confidence, Gary.
Yeah. It's easier said than done. You're the guys that can drive and finish, and especially guards, especially someone like him that's not very big. It's a lot harder than it looks. At least I'll put it that way. So that's something he's got to work on for sure.
Steve wants to know, do you remember Coach Bosch at Kirkwood in the 80s?
Sure.
Kind of a random question, but thank you for answering it. Jeff wants to know, Coach, do you like guarding the inbound pass or not?
At the end of the game, I think you have to do it. You saw the game. Who was it? Virginia. Virginia got a pretty good look there at the end with nobody on the ball. And I'm telling my wife, my daughter, you got to put somebody on the ball. You got to put somebody on the ball so they can't throw a direct baseball pass. And that's about as good a look as you can get with 2 seconds. And he almost made it. So, no, I would put somebody on the ball and try to prevent a direct pass, where a guy could catch it on the run and get a pretty good look.
And that's the final question here in our chat from James. Any thoughts on Furman, Virginia? Incredible ending. I texted you as soon as it happened. I said, how does this continue to happen year after year in March? Just crazy stuff. Kie Clark, such a veteran player, part of that national championship team. He misses a big free throw late down the stretch, and he does a terrible pass. I don't know what he's even trying to do there, run out the clock, or what his mindset is. And it ends up being an unbelievable 3 to win the game for Furman.
Yeah, and Furman hasn't been in the tournament in like 50 years or something, and now they beat a team like Virginia who had a good year. It's that's why everybody wants to watch every game. It's pretty amazing.
And Casey, yes, I will have a women's show tomorrow. Hopefully, we're talking about a win. Boy, if the women lose to CELA, to Southeast Louisiana, we got problems. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they'll rout Southeastern Louisiana, and we'll have either an Iowa-Florida State matchup to talk about Sunday or an Iowa-Georgia matchup. I will be there, folks, for post-game coverage following the game. Again, Hawkeyes and Lions on Friday. That's tomorrow. First round of the NCAA women's basketball tournament, 3 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. Iowa post-game with yours truly right here. And, of course, you can find this show, all of our longer content, featured here on the channel and on our podcast platforms, Spotify, Anchor, Google, etc. One final plug for our sponsor that's, again, they've been with us throughout basketball season, especially these last couple months, Iowa Smokehouse. Thank you to Iowa Smokehouse for sponsoring our March Madness coverage. Wish we could have lasted longer, but at Iowa Smokehouse nonetheless. If you want a better quality snack for game day or any day, check out iowasmokehouse.com. They offer a full lineup of beef jerky, meat sticks, steak bites, even ketchups and barbecue sauces. Tasting is believing. You'll never need to look anywhere else. Visit iowasmokehouse.com and use that code Hawkeye for 15% off your order, and order $50 or more in products, and you'll get free shipping. And we just hope that our winners of our bracket challenge, whoever that may be, our Iowa Smokehouse, their partners down there at Iowa Smokehouse, are sponsoring the bracket challenge. We hope that they take advantage of the $50 or more orders as well, because you get free shipping even with the e-gift card. So again, thank you to Iowa Smokehouse for sponsoring our coverage. They'll be with us again tomorrow for our women's basketball coverage. All right, Gary, it's been a pleasure. Always enjoy talking to you.
Yeah, it's fun.
And again, I appreciate you taking the extra time. Hopefully we can, we'd love to have you on for the championship game. I did a
post. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that sounds like fun too. Yeah.
See what happens. Unless you make the trip down to Houston. You're not planning on any Final Four trip, right?
No, actually, I will be in South Carolina. Well, actually, no, I think that day I'm coming back from South Carolina. So hopefully I'll be back in time. That's a Monday, right? No, I'm not sure where I'll be, to tell you the truth. I think I'll be in South Carolina.
Brock says
that all my golf.
Apparently DeSante Bowen has an Instagram profile picture that's different now, and it's non-Iowa related. So we're going to start reading into that, Gary. So let the speculation begin. By the way, the portal's open. I guess that the only tiny silver lining losing is with the portal as active as it is. This is unprecedented territory for Iowa basketball. It's unfortunate that the portal and the portal window and March Madness lined up like it did. I guess now the staff can fully focus on the transfer portal and recruiting a little bit earlier than maybe some other teams, Gary. Is that fair?
I don't know what the rules are as far as that goes, but I would say you're probably right.
All right, folks. Again, the Auburn Tigers taking out the Hawkeyes 83-75 in March Madness down in Birmingham. For Coach Gary Close, I'm Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm. I will talk to you tomorrow.